Hello and welcome everybody. I am your host, Valentina Pia, and today I'm very, very excited and very honored, and it's such a great pleasure to have here with me, with us, Master Astrologer Stephen Forrest. Hi, Stephen. Thank you for being
Hello.
here and welcome.
I'm happy to be here, Valentina.
That's incredible. I'm very happy to, well, you don't really need many introductions, Stephen. Um, you are a pioneer for evolutionary astrology of this body of work, and you've written many books, I guess almost 20
Yes,
about
16 books.
it. Um, So you are worldwide known astrologer and one of the fathers of evolutionary astrology. And I am an Aries, Mercury Sun, so I really love the word pioneer, to start off something new. So again, it's a real pleasure to have you here with me today and to introduce you to my Italian audience as well, because this interview will be translated so to be available in Italy as well. And so I'd like to ask you, where are you, Stephen, now? You are in the US.
Yeah, I live in Southern California,
Oh,
but away from the coast, or not near the crazy cities. I'm out in the desert. I'm, let's see, about 60 kilometers north of Mexico.
sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's quite beautiful.
How's the weather now?
The weather is perfect now. It's
And
like you step outside in a shirt and you're fine. The summers are awful. The summer is incredibly hot, but the winter is wonderful. Every autumn we plant flowers and they grow all winter, but as soon as May comes, they die. It's just the opposite of everywhere else.
okay, yes, and very interesting place.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
beautiful.
So we have this connection today between US, South California, and Sardinia.
Yes.
Okay, Stephen, I would like to start asking you what is evolutionary astrology, how it is different from traditional astrology, and what can do for us.
Yes, a big question. Um, I would start off by observing that most astrologers in so many of the traditions will give you a personality profile.
Mm,
So you're a Gemini, so you talk too much, or you're a Virgo, so you're picky about all
um,
the details. And sometimes these descriptions are accurate, but what they leave out is the fact that people change, people grow. So all the Scorpios are treacherous. We hear that, never trust a Scorpio. It's silly. I don't want to endorse that idea. But we could imagine a Scorpio person who has the psychological skills to manipulate people and to use people and to be treacherous. And then after some years of that, they realize it's not making them happier. All their relationships are poisoned by this. Maybe I can use this energy in a better way. And instead of being treacherous, they become somebody you can talk to about anything. You can go into really deep places with them. And it means they have evolved. Now, I'm an evolutionary astrologer, of course, and when people hear that, they generally assume, well, yes, they're talking about reincarnation and past lives and all of that, and we definitely are. But the point is, we evolve not only lifetime to lifetime, but day to day, year to year, minute to minute, we're evolving. And I wanted to make that ability to change the center of my approach to astrology rather than simply describing people.
Fantastic. I really like this approach it really opens up us to so many possibilities.
Yes, yes.
Because I myself felt, at some point, the weight of the description, for example, of my midheaven. I have a Pisces midheaven, and it
Mhm.
seemed to be okay. So your work is confusing, your social image is confusing. I was like, yes, it's true. I'm confused, but this isn't helping. This is making it worse. It's like you that
Yes,
confusion because you think you're okay. I'm allowed to stay in this blurry state. So
yeah.
yeah, this is another approach of possibilities.
Yes, yes. And now, as you say, with your Pisces midheaven, you could experience confusion and uncertainty about what you're doing with your life. But we enter that a little bit more deeply. If you don't mind me talking about yourself, I hope that's okay. Uh, so there's a wisdom in Pisces, and the wisdom is that this world that we're experiencing, we're here briefly, and ego and status and money and all of that, it doesn't really mean very much. This is just our temporary residence, and there's a deep wisdom in that. But if we have that wisdom, and then we're 20 years old and our parents are saying you should go to school and get a job and become rich and important, and we don't care. We don't care. We're too wise to care. And so there may be confusion, but then we can take that Piscean energy, that spiritual feeling, that transcendence, and realize, I can do something in this world that isn't about my ego, that's about my vision, that's about love, that's about compassion, that's about imagination, that helps other people in the world. Ooh, I can get excited about that. And then that confusion turns into direction. And so we've seen a person evolve from the lowest to the higher ranges of possibility with the Pisces midheaven. It sounds like you are a living illustration of this principle with your famous podcast.
Thank you, Stephen, for this explanation. Yeah, it completely changed the perspective and gives,
Yes,
hope. Okay, there is something I
yes,
can, there's something I can look up to, I can evolve into.
yes, yes.
So this is truly the beauty. Thank you. Um, okay, I'd like to touch on, well, we know that 2024 is the year where Pluto will enter Aquarius. And I know you are a Capricorn sun. So I thought, okay, you experience the conjunction of transiting Pluto on your
Yes.
natal sun over the last 15 years at some point. So I find really interesting because this is not a transit that we all going to experience. It's not all of us are going to experience Pluto contacting their natal sun. So yeah, I would like to know from the wisdom of your experience, what to expect for those we know with Aquarius sun or even other planets. What is going to happen to that side of our sky with Aquarian energy? Would you like to share?
Yes, that's a big subject. Uh, so Pluto, Pluto always brings repressed or wounded psychic material to the surface. We can count on that. Pluto hits a sensitive point in your chart, and you are ready to face something about yourself that you were not ready to face before. The basic idea is, let's say if we have a movie that has a lot of violence in it, and as a culture, we've decided children shouldn't see that movie. It would be too strong for them. And so we protect the child from that information, and it's probably a good idea. But at a certain age, we we say the child can see the movie, but the deeper point is that the child might actually benefit from seeing the movie. And many people would say, "Oh, that's terrible. Nobody should look at violence," but violence exists in the world, and we need to know about it. It would be wrong to send somebody out into this world with no knowledge of violence. And so let's say a child becomes 13 or 15, and it's time for them to look at this material, to be ready to deal with it, even though it's unpleasant. That's a simple analogy for how transiting Pluto operates, where whatever it's contacting in your chart, earlier you were not ready to look at yourself honestly there. You just weren't strong enough. It would not have been helpful. But now you are ready, and it won't be easy, but you are ready. And as you do that work, you become, just to put it simply, less crazy, because it's our repressed woundedness that makes us behave in ways that hurt us or hurt other people crazy, in other words. And so we become less crazy. And that leads me to one of the things I love to say about Pluto. Astrologers often fear it. It's like, oh, here comes Pluto. There's going to be trouble for you. They teach us fear. And there is some reason for that. It's like I think of somebody starting psychotherapy for the first time. They walk into the therapist's office and they should be scared because they're going to deal with difficult things. And Pluto is like psychotherapy. But to say we should only be afraid of it, no, it misses the point, because once you deal with your own woundedness, once you become less crazy, that energy that was locked up in that self-destructive behavior is now freed up, and you can do anything with it. And so the results of a successful Pluto transit is that we move to a new level of creativity, of passion, of aliveness. It can be a very wonderful thing once it's over.
And it takes some time for it to be over because they're
Yes.
very slow transit. So,
Yeah, 2 or 3, 4 years sometimes.
okay. Okay. So we're talking about few years of the lives of our lives when Pluto comes into contact with some sensitive parts of our sky. Well, I had my first Pluto square, natal Pluto already.
Yes.
2021, 2021, it was very, it was the top, the hotter point. But yeah, I can say it lasted for started for 1 year before and lasted until the year later, so about 3 years.
Yes. Long time.
A real painful times, but the beautiful thing that I'm sensing, feeling, at some point contacting with Pluto is how is connecting you every time more with your power, like with the true personal power, that fire within, that unshakable part of you, really
Yes.
resilient, afraid of nothing. Because after,
Yes. Yes.
oh,
That's exactly what I was trying to talk about myself. So you had the same experience. It sounds like you had a successful Pluto transit. See, when Pluto comes along, oh, let's say you were your parents used to beat you when you were a child. Let's say you were an abused child. Somebody, not you personally, obviously, but we're beaten as a child, and so we're wounded psychically by the parents betrayed us, failed us that way. So we have a wound. When Pluto comes along, hits a sensitive zone, maybe it's time to deal with that. And perhaps we can wrestle successfully in a kind of psychological fashion with that and heal. But if we don't do that, if we're afraid to do that or too lazy to do that, then what happens is whatever the wound was, it gets repeated. And so, for example, what could happen, and here a funny term, what could happen by chance, by coincidence, the word
Yes.
the world always uses, is that we our boss retires. We have a job, and our boss retires, and a new boss comes in who is abusive and mean to us and puts us in impossible situations and shames us. In other words, it's an echo of our own childhood. So it's like we're going to see it again. Now, it doesn't mean we'll learn anything. It just means the universe has said, I'm going to help you learn this if you want to.
By
Let me show
showing
you
you.
what it looks like.
Yeah.
Again, let me take it one step further. And here's where we get right into the heart of evolutionary astrology. So I think of the question, back to the abused child. So we might ask the question, why was that person born into a family where the parents would be abusive? Psychologists will say, I don't know. It was unfortunate, but
Mhm.
random chance. Some people get lucky and some don't. But but as an evolutionary astrologer, we would undoubtedly find in prior lifetimes a pattern of abuse. Like, I make up a story, but perhaps we were tortured by the Spanish Inquisition in a prior life, and that wounded the psyche. And so that unresolved karma, which we can see in the chart, is what led us to be born in this abusive family. And then later we have this new boss who's terrible. And each of these represents some kind of opportunity to begin to break out of the pattern. It doesn't mean we'll break out of the pattern, but what is guaranteed is the opportunity exists. And so a Pluto transit means your past lives are going to be relevant to what you're seeing now. You will meet people who seem strangely familiar to you because you knew them in prior lives. A Pluto time, once we really understand it, even though it's difficult, it's absolutely fascinating. It's living metaphysics.
Yeah. So Pluto is really connected to our past lives, to
Yes, yeah,
pain.
particularly.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. Some pain we have already experienced.
Yes, yes. I would like to say that in my perspective, everything in your chart is connected to past lives. Pluto has some particular relevance to the work we do in healing our past lives, but it's like once we understand that astrology works, and anybody who's open-minded and just sees it, they realize, there's something to this. But once we realize that and we try to understand it, there are only two logical possibilities. One, that the universe is completely random and you're born at a random moment, and then you have this chart and astrology works, and then you die. It's logical. I don't believe it. But the only other possibility is something made you have the chart that you have, that it's meaningful for you to have it. And since you've had your chart ever since the day you were born, whatever made it meaningful, whatever caused you to have that chart, had to happen before you were born. Now, that's not a proof of reincarnation. We could look at it genetically if we wanted to. There are other viewpoints, but we cannot make sense of astrology without realizing that your chart is the end of a long line of previous causes. And I use the reincarnational language because I think that is actually the accurate language. That's my personal belief.
Yes, it really makes sense to me as well, uh, to see it this way. And yeah, I think it's really helpful, and help us to detach problems, from our dramas. And
Yeah.
okay, so maybe there is a meaning.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a solution to this.
Yes. Yes.
Once we connect, once we investigate, what the possible meaning is, and that question that you said, why did I choose this birth chart?
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
So it's really relieving to say it this way.
Yes.
There is
It
hope.
gives life a sense of purpose, and that's so missing from 21st century common sense or understanding of the world. We're increasingly moving into a collective belief system where life is random, essentially. Everything is random and nothing has any real meaning. So have a good time, make some money, and try to live as long as you can, and then
You
die.
only live once.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It makes me very sad to see life this way.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So there are a lot of sad people out there. But astrology, once we think about it deeply, once we think about it philosophically, it begins to give you give you a reason to believe that life is purposeful. That's the simple thing to say. But you can go to any church or any religious institution and they will make the same promise. But with astrology can prove itself to you because you see it working. You don't have to have faith. Now,
Mhm.
faith is a wonderful thing, but it's not necessary with astrology. Astrology will prove itself to you. And when you think about what it's telling us, it is proving to you that there is meaning in what happens in your life. And that's such a revolutionary and exciting idea.
Totally, yes. Like even bad moments, they serve something. They have a
Yeah,
purpose, and this is
exactly.
ah, it's
Yeah,
really yes, very relieving.
yes, yes.
Okay, this year 2023 and also 2024, we have the transiting South Node in Libra and North Node transiting the sign of Aries. And
Mhm.
I've seen in my life, family, friends, and so much struggle with relationships. I
Yes.
feel, at this time, relationships are really suffering because there is this call to individuality with North Node in Aries, and to purge some toxic ways of relating, some unbalanced. So I'm curious to ask you, um, how can evolutionary astrology help us to live more harmonious relationship, to transform our relationships?
Yeah, yeah. Again, a very big question. I want to enter it through the Libra South Node, Aries North Node that you mentioned. The first thing I'd want to say as clearly as I could is that this will be a very general set of statements, a pattern of energy affecting everyone on the planet, and within that some people, it's going to be the thing we need to understand about this person, the one thing. For others, it's going to be a smaller issue, depending on their charts and what else is going on for them personally. So I need to be a little careful. But we will see this pattern. So the South Node in Libra, South Node always represents an old habit. It's karmic in origin, and it always has a negative component to it. It's something holding us back. And then the North Node, of course, will be the answer, how to solve the South Node problem. So Libra, ruled by Venus. We often associate it positively with friendship, with love, with happy marriage. And at its best, that's what it symbolizes. But looking at it a little bit more deeply, uh, if if you and I were in a relationship, let's say, and you said, I want to go to Sicily on vacation, and let's say I don't really want to go. I would rather go to Scotland on our vacation. But because I love you, I say, oh, Sicily, yes, that would be great. In other words, I've compromised, I've behaved lovingly towards you, I've been generous towards you. That all sounds great, but I've also made you think that I want to go to Sicily when I don't really want to go to Sicily. I want to go to Scotland, but I've kept that secret. Now, any marriage that lasts is going to have a lot of that kind of generosity in it, a willingness to meet the other person's needs and to not make my needs the most important needs. So this is healthy Libra. But what if over lifetimes I compromise and compromise and compromise, and inwardly I'm frowning, but outwardly a big smile on my face? And I developed this pattern of kind of disappearing in the relationship. And immediately, I'm sure everybody listening to this understands how dangerous that is, that some resentments build up inside, a frustration builds up inside. South Node enters Libra, and that karma is ripening, and so often when we look at a marriage or even a friendship that's in trouble today under this present astrological environment, and everybody has their complaints, and this person did that, and you did this, and everybody's angry, but we start to look at the heart of it, and we will see that the root issue is too much compromise for too long, that we were too loving. I put it in quotation marks because it's a complicated word. And so, what's the cure? How do we save such a relationship? Aries energy. Here's what I want. Let's go to Scotland. I don't want to go to Sicily. Or, uh, I am angry with you. Just that simple statement. You can love somebody deeply and still be angry with them. And you say it, put it on the table. Let's talk about it. You really hurt my feelings. And so we go through Aries process, and that cures the Libra issues. Now, once again, I'm sure there's some people listening to this and they're thinking, oh my God, that's my life. And there are who don't relate to it so strongly. And we look at their chart and we would understand it's maybe not quite as pressing an issue, but this is the general pattern, across the planet.
Mhm. I know it very well because I am a South Node in seventh house.
Oh,
So this is
yes.
my pattern.
Yeah, very
And I
similar.
was born, with strong Aries energy to solve this karmic story.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, I'm really feeling this transit. I'm really feeling this moment of distress in relationships. And yes, and I really would like to, if you can share with us, like, how can we use like synastry or, composite chart, for example, to understand what are the patterns in one relationship. Can we transform them? Like, what do we look at?
Hmm. With synastry, the astrology of relationships, there the main thing I would want to say is we've inherited some ideas from our ancestors that don't work very well anymore. And they've gotten into the synastry books. Like for example, if you're a Virgo, you should marry a Taurus or a Capricorn, because these are, it's that equilateral triangle of the
You get along
Earth.
well. And then
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you do, but if you're a Taurus, don't marry an Aquarius because that's a square. And so we have a very simple idea that seems to make sense, but I don't think it does make sense anymore. The simple idea, harmony is good, disharmony is bad in a relationship. Would you rather be in a harmonious relationship or a disharmonious relationship? And it seems like the easiest question in the world. And of course, for obvious reasons, harmony can be a sweet thing, and we need some harmony. But I think we also need some disharmony. I'd go back and look at what I was saying a few moments ago about Libra, the sign of harmony. Oh, sure, I'd love to go to Sicily. Yes, I've always wanted to do that. And so we have peace,
mhm.
but I've hidden something. And then maybe I move in the Aries direction, a metaphor for disharmony, and we have a fight. And I say, you made me go to Sicily. And you say, I didn't make you go to Sicily. You said you wanted to go to Sicily.
We're
No,
so
I didn't. I
excited.
never wanted. So we fight about it. We argue about it. And maybe that's terrible. Maybe we get a divorce because we're so angry at each other. But maybe we start laughing. Like as soon as I started this, you laughed a little bit. Me too, as we realize, we're just a couple of monkeys and we're both doing our best, but we misled each other. And let's just straighten it out. And it was my fault and it was your fault. And let's not even think about fault. Let's just remember that we love each other and try to improve our communication.
Mm.
Now, just one point to follow up on this. Every couple understands that if we have a fight and we resolve it and we come to understanding after 2 hours of argument, maybe I say to you, are you okay? And you say, yeah, I think so. Are you? And I say, yeah, I'm glad we talked about this. Yeah, me too. Me too. I love you. Yeah, I love you too. And that night, they go to bed and they make love. They make love. A fight, nobody likes to fight, but a fight that is resolved and leads to understanding creates more closeness than all of the agreements in the world. Oh, sure, I'd love to go to Sicily. That distances people. And so, where this goes in terms of synastry is that the old nightmare of the old-fashioned astrologers, oh, there's squares or oppositions between
Very
my
bad.
planet. Your planet's very bad, very bad. No, those are where the passion resides. Those are the problems that when we resolve them, build that soul chemistry between people. The trines and the sextiles, the softer aspects, they can be wonderful. They allow us to be friends, but they're also kind of sleepy. And so we need some of both in the modern world. People in the old days, I got one more chapter here. In the old days, marriage was basically necessary for survival. Throughout almost the entirety of human history, almost everybody was a farmer. Just the simple truth of it, living off the land. And you need a family, the husband and the wife and the children, working on the farm. And if your marriage isn't meeting your spiritual needs, what could you do? If you're a woman, you become a nun or a prostitute. If you're a man, you become a bandit or a soldier. They're not good options. And so we had to stay together. And that was a practical reality. And astrologers adapted to that reality. And what they would look for would be harmony. We put these two together for 30 or 40 years. What are the chances that they would kill each other? The lower, the better, And so we would maximize harmony. We didn't have to know each other or engage with the soul journey of the other person. But nowadays, it's so different. Nobody has to be married anymore. That's completely different. Being a single person is a perfectly fine way of being human, and everybody agrees it really beats the idea of being in a bad marriage. Almost everybody would rather be single than be in a
Yes,
bad marriage or a bad relationship. We've all lived that one. And so nowadays we're looking for, we could say we're looking for passion.
mhm,
People hear that word, and they think it means sex. And in some ways it does, but it's like what keeps sex alive? What keeps sexual passion alive? And it's not just find somebody cute enough, that doesn't last long. And there has to be soul passion to keep the physical passion alive. And just my final point is that soul passion is basically spiritual growth. That's what it's all about.
absolutely. Yeah, that's why this passion sometimes can also be, challenging. Oh, too much passion, too much fire, too much
Yeah,
lights.
yes, yes,
But, it's like you said, the square, what traditional astrologer used to say, oh, that's really bad, you know.
yeah, yeah,
And you, if you desire, if you are up for it, you can make, a great change. You can really transform and grow with that harsh, hard energy, of the squares or, other hard connections. So there is the possibility for relationships as well to grow. For example, we hear often talk about karmic relationships.
yes, yes,
Um, I think they're so common. They might all be karmic relationships.
yeah.
What's your what's your idea of karmic relationships? Like your experience with studying synastry um, of karmic relationships. Can they be transformed into evolutionary relationships?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would start off by saying that I think virtually all relationships are karmic.
Mm.
Uh, the alternative, if two lonely people meet in a bar, drink a little bit too much, and they wind up in a bed together, and the next morning they're a little awkward, it's like this wouldn't have happened had they been sober. That may not be karma.
Mhm.
They maybe have created some karma, but I don't think they would necessarily knew each other in a past life. Just not to judge anyone, but the the deep intimacy that comes from human sexuality. It's like to let another soul that close to you. I think it takes lifetimes of dancing together in various ways before you can allow that much closeness with another soul. And so I think when you see a marriage, especially a happy one, but even almost any marriage that lasts, even if they're not very happy, we're seeing that marriage as the culmination of a long series of dances they've been doing with each other as maybe parent and child or comrades or best friends, and just getting to know each other more and more. So any relationship that lasts, I think there is karma involved. And we come together for a purpose, and the purpose typically involves getting past some old pattern in our relationship where we'll have the south node of the moon in the composite chart, which will reveal something of the nature of the karma of the relationship. And there's a north node. That's what we're working on. Plus, I want to help you with your karma. You want to help me with my karma. And so there's a soul contract, and we cannot understand it without looking at the past and recognizing that this is just one scene in a very long play.
Mm. So it can be very helpful when a couple is experiencing some sort of, like when some karmic things are activated. Because, at the beginning, everything is beautiful, you're in love, he's the most
Yeah.
amazing man, the most amazing woman. And then shadows, start to arise, and the karma, is there. So at that point can be very helpful to have maybe a session with an astrologer to see what is the meaning, what do we really, what's really happening, what are we facing, what is it, so
Yes.
we can transform it. Yeah,
Yes.
really powerful tool.
Yeah, exactly. It's the X-ray. It just reveals the truth.
Yeah, because so many times there are so many, splittings, because there is no understanding of
Yes.
a possible solution of dynamics. And so, yeah, I think it's really, really beautiful to apply evolutionary astrology to relationship. And I know it's a very big topic, and we almost to the end of our time, but I would like to ask you one last question, which is, just, it's partly for fun and partly also for, for teaching purposes, for someone to see something that resonates with the sky. After I invited you to my podcast, I went to see your birth chart because I don't remember, if I seen it before. I knew a few things, I follow your newsletter. I know you're a Capricorn sun, but I was curious to see, I wonder, what connections there are with Steven. Um, so I went to see your birth chart that I found in, astro.com.
Yes,
And
yes.
I guess is correct.
Yeah. I think so, yes.
Okay. And I was really surprised to see, because I know my birth chart, by heart. So I can I can see the synastry, straight away. So many connections. I was like, wow, we've been friends before. uh, and it's really interesting. I find this really beautiful, the way, the ability you have to like weave a story by analyzing, a birth chart or a synastry, as you do in your books, the inner sky mates. And so my question is, would you like if I share our synastry? Would you like maybe to tell us, where to start analyzing a synastry? What catches your attention, where to look at? Are you,
Sure.
are
Yes,
you
I'm fine with that.
okay? A bit for fun, and maybe we'll learn something.
Yeah, so I'm sure we will.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you. I have it here. Um, can you see it?
Yes, yes, I can.
So this is my birth chart inside,
Yes,
and yours.
on the outside, yes.
Exactly.
Mhm. And let's see. I'm looking, it takes a little while to take
Yeah.
these. And let's see your south node. Oh, I'm seeing your south node doesn't show here, but it's in Capricorn there in the seventh house.
Yeah.
And
That's why I thought, oh, maybe there is a connection between my South Node and his sun. That's
Yes,
why
it looks like I'm not seeing degrees, but my Sun Jupiter conjunction falls on your South Node.
it's
Is that
18
correct?
degrees, 18 degrees, my South Node.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Because my son is in 16. So here's a way of thinking about this in general, that if we look for, this gets a little bit technical, but we look for where my planets form aspects to your south node,
Okay.
or or where your planets form aspects to my south node. And then the basic idea is that in this case, so my sun is on your south node, that in a prior life, I presented myself to you as the sun. You looked at me and you saw sun symbolism.
Mm,
And so in this case, the sun, of course, is powerful. The sun is the king of the solar system. Uh, uh, Perhaps I was a teacher of yours. Perhaps I was a boss of yours with my sun in Capricorn. Maybe I was your father.
my father.
It could be. It could be. Now, we need to insert some common sense here. I could pull somebody's chart out of Kazakhstan. Let's say there's somebody living in Kazakhstan now, and I pull their chart and I compare it to your chart, and we would see some connections between you and this person. Just statistically, you're connected astrologically to hundreds of millions of people around the earth. It doesn't mean you have personal karma with every one of them.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just sort of a mathematical side effect. And so, in doing this kind of astrology, I always like to make sure before I say anything that there is a relationship between the two people, that something is actually happening in real life between them. And that gives me the green light, so to speak, to begin to try to think of it karmically. You and the person from Kazakhstan, I don't necessarily assume that there's any meaning in the fact
Yes,
that his moon squares your south node. It might
I get it.
mean nothing at all. But in this case, I mean, you and I have just met and so on, but I've been a figure in your life through my teaching. And so that gives me some reason to think that maybe I should look at this, and that you have orbited around me just like planets orbit the sun in prior lives. And hopefully I've brought you good things in prior lives, through my teaching. I pray that's true. The Jupiter suggests maybe there's some good reason for that. But you have a south node in the seventh house and a north node in the first house.
Yes.
And so I have a little fantasy here. It's a happy fantasy. And it's like 30 years from now. Let's
Mhm.
say I'm dead and gone. My life is finished, and you're an old lady, and you have written a very important astrology book that brought evolutionary astrology to Italian civilization, and you're being interviewed on television. And they say, I understand that your teacher when you were younger was Stephen Forrest, from the United States. And here's here's what I'm heading for. And you say, well, yes, I admired his work. I was influenced somewhat by Stephen Forrest. In other words, you're respecting me, but you're also showing that first house north node, that independence, that it was like you didn't become a clone of Stephen Forrest. You let yourself learn from him, but you didn't fall into your seventh house pattern of giving your power away, but
Mhm.
instead claimed your own power, moved
Yeah,
your own direction. And I hope that if I'm on the other side of the veil watching all this happen, I'm thinking, yes, good for you. Good for you. She didn't try to be me. She tried to be herself. She got her first house north node correct.
amazing. I love this, Steven. So beautiful, so fun to, yeah, to see astrology in action in this way, like a possible story from the past and also from the future. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's also very entertaining, it can be very entertaining too. Um, uh, yeah, beautiful. Thank you for this.
You're
So,
welcome.
okay, so you would say first thing we'd look at self-node connections to understand the story.
Yes.
And
My planets to your south node and vice versa.
okay, and then eventually we look at the north node to see
Yeah.
how can we help each other, for
Yeah,
example.
exactly. That's what the strategy is for the future. Like I was just saying, for you, so much of your own evolution is you learning to take charge of your own life, to not be. It's not that you're supposed to avoid relationships, but avoid being defined by
Yeah,
relationship.
beautiful. Um, Well, I would like to ask you many more questions, but I think, um, yeah, I'm really grateful for all that you share. We went to so many topics, in
Yeah.
such a short time. Um, so yeah, that was very inspiring and also really beautiful to talk to you, Steven.
I've enjoyed it, Valentina. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a guest. Well, I would like to ask you as a last question, how can we work with you, Steven? Would you like to share your website, your current offerings so that we can, connect and eventually study with you?
Sure, sure. One of my favorite questions. I've started an online school. It's quite international. It's successful. We have 200 or 250 students. It's the Forrest Center for Evolutionary Astrology. The website is Forrest Astrology, two R's in Forrest, FORREST, and then astrology uh, dot center. So
Okay,
forestastrology.center.
I will put a
And
link below for everybody to click on
yeah.
it.
Oh, great. Yeah, that'll help. And then forestastrology.com, that's my basic website where people can buy my books or listen to recorded lectures. We always make sure we have a lot of free material on both websites, and of course you can buy books and so on if you want. So lots of ways to study with me. I'm very excited about the school because it's a 3 or 4 year program, and people can enter with no knowledge, and by the time they're finished, they're equipped to become professional astrologers.
Okay,
And
4 years.
yeah,
Oh,
yes, 3 or 4. There's some choices they make about how fast they go through it, but 3 or 4 years is about right. So it's like going to law school or something like that. It's a serious program.
fantastic. Yeah, I think I feel astrology is becoming more and more popular. So it's amazing that, you have this school where we can go through, you know, a long process, um,
Yes.
which is necessary because it's
Yeah.
such a long and complex study.
Yeah, yes. I like it when people take it seriously. Because there's no licensing with astrology. We do get people who read one book and then decide they're professionals or have a YouTube channel, and they know that there are 12 signs in the zodiac and not much more than that. And so it's a problem that we have no control over the quality of the work.
And when is the next intake? I mean, when does it start?
It's we're currently enrolling a new group, but every twice a year we'll start a new cycle of students.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to share this below for everybody to go and have a look. I really invite you also to read Stephen books because I really love the way you break down astrology and make it so practical and easy to understand and approach and use. So
Thank you.
yeah, I really recommend it. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time, for showing up so early in the morning. I really appreciate, and really thank you for so much. Such a honor, and thank you to everybody that is watching us in Italy, Sardinia, all over the world. At some point, they found this interview, this podcast in YouTube on the internet. Thank you for your presence and sending you all love and so many blessings for this new year and all the years to come. Grazie.
Grazie, ciao amici.
Ciao Steven, grazie di cuore.